to Toastmaster Time TV, the show that has everyone talking. Just like in a Toastmasters meeting, the show is going to have two speakers and also have evaluations on those speeches to help the speakers learn how to improve and develop as speakers. Tonight, we have our very own evaluator in the house, Mr. Nathan Woods.
Thank you, Happy. I'm really looking forward to today's show. Both of our speakers are going to be conveying information to our audience, and the two speeches are doing it in different ways. One is a motivational speech, and the other one is informative. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these two speeches are similar and how they're different.
Thank you so much, Nate. Our first speaker tonight is A.T. Lynne. A.T., how are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Happy. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm really excited that you're here. This is your first time on the show.
It is indeed.
Wonderful, but not your first time giving a speech.
No, it is not.
How long have you been a Toastmaster?
I began in Toastmasters in 1992.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what motivates you to want to be a better speaker?
Well, my work, Happy, has an opportunity to speak, and my work is as a hypnotherapist, so language is very important, learning how to express and use language in a compelling way.
Wonderful. And I hear that you have a public speaking idol. Who's that?
I do. It's Patricia Fripp. I had the opportunity to meet Patricia at her cable car Toastmasters just last month. What an inspiration.
Great. And what is your club that you're from?
Yes, my primary club is Talk of the Town Toastmasters. This is in San Rafael, and it's Club 7075.
Right on. Do you feel ready to speak?
I do indeed. Thank you, Happy.
Yes, I'm going to give you time to get prepared. And during that time, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Toastmasters educational program. There are 17 manuals full of speech projects that help us go through learning different skills, such as vocal variety, using gestures, speech structure, and we do have an evaluator tonight to let us know how our speakers did on their specific objectives from the manuals. Nate, what can you tell us about AT's objectives?
Well, AT is giving the project number 5 from the Professional Speaker Manual. The objectives of this speech are to understand the concept and nature of motivational speaking, to apply a 4-step motivational method with the purpose of persuading and inspiring, and finally to deliver a motivational speech to persuade an audience to emotionally commit to an action.
Right on. So this is A.T. Lynne with Master Your Spelling, or Your Spelling Will Master You. A.T.?
Last week, I got an email or a text message from my friend Susan responding to a lunch date we had. Susan's text message said, "Fear 80, mating with my client. Don't waste Mr. Kumar. See you, Bunyan." At lunch, Susan made it clear what that message was, which was, "Dear A.T., meeting with my client. Don't wait for me, and see you by noon." Yes, hacked again by auto check. Not a problem for friends. However, since more and more of us are communicating professionally through the sound bites in our cell phones, that sort of misspelling could cause more than humorous embarrassment. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you consider that either you master your spelling or your spelling will master you. To spell, it means to put letters in a significant order to create a word. Now, by the time we get to kindergarten, most of us can spell our names. Amazingly, by the end of junior high or middle school, most of us have been taught 90% of the words that we will use throughout our lifetimes. Now, that can seem pretty impressive, 30,000 words on average. However, it's a little less impressive when you consider that there are more than 250,000 words currently in use in the English language. Now, this ability to spell is an activity of the conscious mind. However, there is another definition, another meaning to spell that we also learn as little children. This meaning, however, we learn mostly at the unconscious level, and the seat of the unconscious mind is here. The definition of that meaning of spell is actually to influence, to cast influence on and control the body and mind of other people. And consider this, is that not what parents, politicians, policemen, teachers, preachers, and public speakers wish to do? Indeed, we want to cause people to stop moving around, to give us a chance to cast our influence over their minds with our ideas and our concepts. Consider this as well. When we were children, ever since infancy, we have been under the influence of that spell, body and mind, and often all it took was a 1 or 2 word phrase, and we were under that spell. Don't, go here, do this, shut up. In fact, that training was so powerful that even now we are susceptible to 2-word or 3-word phrases, just like click here, bye now. When we were little children, we also learned how to cast our own spells, didn't we? Indeed. What toddler didn't learn the power of casting a spell the first time she screamed at the top of her lungs her father's favorite swear word in the middle of a grocery store? Indeed, we have caused our families great embarrassment when we began to cast our own spells. Let's consider the power of 3 words in the English language to cast spells over us. The first is fear, the next is need, and the third is pain. Consider this. Did you feel something? Just the power of those words alone can cause us sensations in our bodies. Indeed, we feel them here. Let's look at these words and why they have such influence on us. The definition of fear is to imagine a future we do not want to live in. Need is to be destitute, needy, lacking the resources of our own capacities. And third, yes, third is pain. The first definition of pain is punishment for crimes or sins. I invite you to replace those words with these. Consider these options. When you consider using the word fear, use instead the word faith. Yes, to replace fear with faith turns your attention to that which you do want to have happen. When you consider the word need, replace that with desire. For to desire is to ask for what we want, is to demand what we want, and is to have faith we're going to get what we want. And the third, pain, consider using the word sensation. Yes, listen to the sensations in your body and allow those to guide you to better health. Once there was an old priest who, as he was approaching the end of his life, was granted the opportunity to go into the catacombs, into the library of the Vatican to see the sacred texts. He had studied the ancient languages of the Bible. And late in the day, the librarian went to look for the old priest. And he found him crying over a dusty old book. And the librarian said, "Why the tears, Father?" And the priest said, "Oh my goodness, it was a mistake, a terrible mistake." And the librarian said, "What was the mistake, Father?" And the priest said through his tears, "It was a misspelling. The word was celebrate." Yes, ladies and gentlemen, either you master your spelling or your spelling is certain to master you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, A.T. And now we have Nate with your evaluation and what you found in that.
Yeah, really great speech, very enjoyable. My favorite parts were probably the humor at both the opening and the closing. Helped bring me in and really get me at a point where I was ready to take in the message.
Now, she had specific objectives. Can you speak to any of those, what you found for that?
Yeah, certainly. I think understanding the concept and nature of motivational speaking was accomplished. We see that through a handful of strong visualizations wherein an audience member can relate to a toddler screaming. An audience member can relate to either receiving or sending a botched cell phone message.
Yeah.
And we can really see how something like spelling impacts each of us individually.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally in a evaluation you give some things that have been done right to continue doing and maybe something to grow on. Can you name maybe one in each category?
Yeah, certainly. I think one of the really strong things about this speech, and I kept coming back to it as I was taking notes, there were certain almost phrases of power. When I heard the seat of the unconscious mind, click here, buy now. These small phrases really pulled me in and again made me feel really motivated to take this seriously.
Okay, cool. One to grow on quickly, anything there?
Yeah, one to grow on would perhaps more vocal variety, more highs and lows.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Now we're going to take a quick break to get ready for the second half. Thanks for watching Toastmaster Time TV.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to Toastmaster Time TV, the show that still has everybody talking. Our next speaker tonight is George Marshall. George, how are you doing?
Just great. Thank you, Abby.
Excellent. So, you have been around this show. You've seen this show before a few times, right?
Yep.
Yeah, why is that?
I really got interested in TV as a different way the Toastmasters can express themselves and got involved many years ago, and so fascinated me that I've been wanting to make the opportunity available to all kind of members.
Excellent. And you have been a Toastmaster how long?
13 years.
13 years. You're a Toastmasters teenager now. That is an
Thank you.
accomplishment. That is a great accomplishment. Excellent. Do you feel prepared to speak?
I think I'm ready, Abby.
You think you're ready? All right, I'll give you time to situate yourself.
All right.
In the meantime, I don't even remember what I was going to talk about, but I am glad to have the opportunity to be on Toastmaster Time again. I really enjoy this, and I am going to go ahead and have our evaluator talk about the objectives of George's speech.
Fantastic. Thank you, Happy. George is giving project number 4 out of the Competent Communication Manual. And the name of the project is How to Say It. And I think as someone coming to us as a Toastmaster teenager,
Yes.
we can really look forward to something fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure he has an idea of how to say things. So tonight we'll have George Marshall with The Easy Way to Write a Speech. This is The Easy Way to Write a Speech by George Marshall.
The other day I went to listen to a speaker. I was expecting a lot of great things from him. He started out, the opening was fantastic. I was mesmerized. I was waiting for the rest of it to come along. And yet, by the end of the talk, I had no idea what it was he was trying to tell me. Because that opening had very little to do with the main points, and none of those had anything to do with the conclusion. He gave me no help in remembering what his speech was about. And before I made fun of him, I realized I've done that myself. I've given a talk, looked around the room, and been puzzled with people getting bored or confused. Oh no. And if we are not communicating with the audience, it's not the audience's fault, is it? We need to do better. There's two parts to a speech. There's your content, what you have to say, your message, and there's how you deliver that message, your voice, your gestures. Delivery is important, isn't it? But if you don't have your content worked out to where your audience can follow you from one point to another one, it's not going to make any difference, is it? So tonight I've got some help for you. Something that's going to make it easier for you to create speeches that the audience can follow and make it easier for them to listen to you. Now there's three parts to every speech. The opening, how you introduce your material, whatever main points you have in their description, and then the conclusion, where you remind the audience what it is your message was about. Here's how we're going to go about it. The first thing you do when you start a speech is to write, no, not the opening. Write down the purpose of the speech. And by purpose, I mean the specific purpose. What would you like people to do, think, or feel as a result of your speech? For example, suppose you want people to become more aware of home safety and fire hazards. Well, that's a general topic. A specific purpose might be you want them to go home and check the batteries in their smoke detector. A very specific purpose. Okay, you've got your purpose. You know why you're going to stand up and talk. Next thing is to write the conclusion. What? The conclusion? Yes, we're going to work on the end of the speech. Why? Because the conclusion is where you tell your audience what your talk was about. It's not a place to bring up new material. You want to leave them with your central message. So your conclusion summarizes that. Fine, now we've got our purpose and we've got our conclusion. You might have had to iterate a little bit on those two. That's all right. Finally, we're going to write our main points. You've got, say, 3 points you want to make. You list them one at a time. And with each one of those, you'll give maybe a story, maybe an example, maybe an extended description of some kind. What it is, with a transition between each point. Finally, we've written our purpose, we've got a conclusion, we've written our points. Okay, now you can write your opening. Why did we wait until the end to write the opening? It's very simple. Now we know what's in the speech, don't we? Unlike that speaker that I listened to a while back who had a great opening but didn't know what to do with it because it didn't relate to the rest of the speech, your opening is going to introduce the idea you're talking about. So what have we done now? You've got a complete recipe for how to write a speech. Why is this important? Because if you're going to write a speech, it can be hard to come up with all the right pieces. But if you have a recipe for how you write it, then it's easier to go through the motion. And if it's easier to do those steps, that says there's a much better chance you'll like what you've done, and even better, the audience will remember it. So let's review. You've got to write a speech. The first thing you're going to do is to decide the purpose. Not the general purpose, not a vague idea of talking about this or that, but the specific purpose, what you want the audience to do, to think, or to feel as a result of listening to you talk. After you've written it down, yes, you should write that down, then you write the conclusion. The conclusion summarizes the entire talk. This is where you write down exactly what it is that you hope the audience take away. Then you're going to write the main point one at a time with the transition between each one of them. And finally, after you've got everything else, you can write the opening. If you will follow this method, you're going to find two things. One, it's easier to come up with material to present. And two, your audience is going to love it because they actually understand what you were trying to tell them.
Tremendous advices, George. Nate, you have the tough job of evaluating that.
Yeah, as far as an informational speech, how to say it, that was spot on. I think the learning was really well re-emphasized throughout, and I think it was very applicable to the entire audience, folks watching Toastmaster Time TV with us tonight.
So his specific objectives were what again?
Yes, my apologies. Is selecting the right words and sentence structure to communicate your ideas clearly, accurately, and vividly. To use rhetorical devices to enhance and emphasize ideas. And to eliminate jargon and unnecessary words using correct grammar.
Well, I know what I think. How do you feel about how he did on that?
I think he hit all three out of the park. In terms of something to grow on, I think you really have to go outside of what the speech objectives were. And it might have been more powerful if there was a motivational element to it. Perhaps a person who used this methodology to accomplish a thing. But again, in terms of a how to say it speech, a speech to teach us,
Excellent.
flawless.
Okay, thank you so much for your input, Nate. Now we are going to take a short break and be back in a moment.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom requires leadership, and leadership requires oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Welcome back to Toastmaster Time TV. I'm your host, Happy Skywalker, here with Nate Woods. So, Nate, one of the reasons that I love being involved with Toastmasters is all the recognition. I see you have a pin on. What is that?
Yes, this pin is recognition for stepping up to an area directorship role.
Excellent.
And you can see I do wear it with pride, as a matter of fact. I'd really appreciate this one.
Yeah, the area director role I actually did last year, and I brought something that I was given for my work as an area director. This is the Area Director of the Year award. I'm proud of it. Actually, I brought something. I have a lot of recognition from Toastmasters, and this is one of the reasons that I love doing this. There's so many wonderful things to say about being a Toastmaster, but I think that receiving appreciation regularly, recognition, and opportunities to shine is wonderful. Anything that you're proud of that you have earned in Toastmasters?
Yeah, matter of fact, if you don't mind, I'll grab a couple items from this box as well. I've received 2 first place medals from speech contests. And as you said, just recognition, getting that pat on the back that you've done something really well, that's just fantastic.
It's priceless, yeah. Wonderful. Well, it has been a wonderful show, and I greatly appreciate you joining us and our speakers joining us. And thank you to the folks out there for visiting Toastmaster Time TV. If you would like to know more about Toastmasters, they do have a wonderful website. Actually, Toastmaster Time TV first has a website where you can come visit about the show. That's toastmastertime.com. Also, there is a district that sponsors this show, and that is Toastmasters District 57, who has a website at d57tm.org. And the Toastmasters International website is toastmasters.org, where you can visit to learn more about what Toastmasters is, why it exists, more about the public speaking and leadership opportunities here, and find a club that's near you. I am so glad you joined us tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed the show.